So, dear European or presidents from the European region, dear, of course, regional coordinator Anu, dear members of the Constitutional Advisory Chair, good evening to everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you and to take you with us on this journey. The question might come up, why should we amend our constitution? Why should this be necessary? We have a good constitution. We have, just to let me historically go back, when you look at the time when we had the apartment in London, we were registered in London. Then the apartment was sold because the president's office was with each president, and it was more accommodating to have the things with each president and not far away, or not in London where all travel would be necessary. We lost the registration. And then to go back in 2011, we had the Congress in Helsinki. And as you might remember, and as you can see in the proceedings, the General Assembly accepted that BPW International should be registered in Switzerland. And the president of this, international president of this time, was supposed to register us, and she did that. But unfortunately, and I understand that is not a reproach, I understand this very well, Switzerland is a federalistic state, and we have in each canton a registry of commerce. Where Liz Benham did register us was the so-called CAGI, the Center of Welcoming NGOs accredited with the UN. And that we are still there. We send them still every year documentation, the necessary documentation, like the audited finance sheets, but it's not an official registration. And I realized this as an international, as a vice president for UN, and was putting it on the floor because it's important not to be not registered somewhere leaves us open to makes us weak. Why? Suppose somebody has an accident somewhere in an international congress and is accusing us of negligence or I don't know what. We would not even be able to hire a lawyer, because for a lawyer, we need a registration number. If we are, that is a new thing, UN Women agreed to sign an MOU with us, and this is a major thing. It happened 10 days ago, and that means we will also have access to bigger funds. And for these funds, all over the world, for projects, we need a registration number. So we have to do this journey to be in order with our documents and to put BPW International on a solid basis. So that is the background, the historical background of this endeavor. What happened? We put then as our actual constitution. We tried, it was a long process. I started, in fact, at the beginning of my triennium, this registration process, and we realized that it was not as easy. We had all the documentation, we prepared everything that was handed in. But then we realized the Office of Registry asked us to comply with the so-called association law. This is part of the civil law in Switzerland. And to respond to certain articles they have there, which means specifically we have to mention in the Constitution who has the right to sign. That we have to sign in double signature at least, and the people who sign. That was one of the things. The second one is each club or each association has to hand in the audited financial sheet every year, and we will have also to vote on those. That could be done virtual by the international board. Otherwise, there were in fact not many changes, but we had some things that are in our procedure manual needed to go to the Constitution, and other things from the Constitution, which are more or less ways how we execute things, need to go to the procedure manual. So Caroline Savage will take you through the journey and to see, but it does not mean that our Constitution has really fundamentally changed. That's absolutely not the case. In fact, with the exception of these two paragraphs that we have to register the signatories, and that we have to hand in and to vote on the balance sheet. There is nothing really new. It's a little bit organized differently so that it would be accepted by the registration of commerce in Geneva. Caroline, you have the floor. Are there any questions from your side to this? Yes, President Joe.
Good evening, Madam International President. Please, can I ask to save me writing lots of notes? Are we going to be able to have these slides, please, so that I can explain all this to my FEC?
Caroline is nodding her head. Yes, you can, of course.
Thank you very much.
So, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Greetings, greetings, greetings from New Zealand. I'm Caroline Savage, a CAC chair, and I'm going to take you through this journey. There was 175 slides in this presentation, and they've been condensed to help this morning's process. But from what's important to understand, when our constitution and regulations were updated in 2011, it was agreed, adopted, basically voted and adopted at our General Assembly that we would be registering BPWs in Geneva. So all the resolutions, everything was passed and the process was to be started. So in 2021 to 23, the existing constitutional regulations required review, and this was confirmed at a BPW Intercontinental meeting, and we reviewed what was found, what required amendment, and new mandatory clauses are identified for registration compliance. So that was a major step, and you've got the easy part. So we'll now take you on the next phase of the journey. So the BPW International Documents for Review, Part 1 is the Constitution and Regulations, and Part 2 is the Procedure Manual. I'm not taking you through the Procedure Manual today. If I speak too fast, can someone please let me know? If we need some translation, Carla is here as the regional representative on the CAC committee, so thank you. So, an introduction to where we are, an overview of where we are to date, the BPW Constitutional Regulations. So there's three parts now. One is the preliminary clauses, and this outlines what are additional documents that are to be read with our key documents. The Constitution, the regulations. So part 1A, Constitution Update and Revisions. And then we have a presentation and QA session. And part 1B would be the BPW Constitution Regulations with a presentation QA session. Now, to understand as well, all our definitions have been put at the back of the document. And I say a definition should exclude non-essentials. A good definition should be as concise as possible. So an example I've been using, a fork. A definition of a fork, it is used to eat with, to take food from a plate into your mouth. How it's made, how you use it in other ways, that's in the procedure manual. We won't put a fork in our procedure manual. And this will be distributed with a copy of the PowerPoint presentation PDF for review. So, agenda, the next stages, updated PowerPoint for presentations with any amendments from the executive. So this was presented to the executive at the beginning of October. And listening to some of the things that were asked, there's a Q&A session that came out of it, and there's minor tweaks that were made. So there was, just to let you know, there's a 139-page PowerPoint presentation when I went to present it, and came out 175. Issue draft constitution and regulations with proposed amendments to Swiss lawyers for review. So we've been working very closely with Swiss lawyers. Draft resolutions for every amendment proposed. So my job is definitely not over, and nor is my CAT committee. Preparation of webinars with President and CAT Chair for distribution to all affiliate federations, affiliate clubs, and individual affiliate members for distribution as well, and inclusion of all our members across the world. So presentation across the 5 regions with each of the regional coordinators and CAC representatives of the region present. Call for vote from the International Board on an extraordinary virtual General Assembly. So an invitation to go out to an International Board will be issued from our President's Office. And 2, procedure draft manual presentation. As under our Constitution regulations, when the Constitution has been updated, we review the procedure manual, and if there's anything that's been changed, we need to make sure the procedure manual aligns with the Constitution regulations. So a quick timeline. This was first discussed and presented at the BPW Intercontinental on the proposed work that would be undertaken on this Constitution regulations over the following 12 to 16 months. And then November 2022, our President's message to all on the issue of the BPW International's regulations, registration, and then the work that was required on the Constitution regulations. So we did, as a CAT committee, our Constitution regulations need a little bit of work. And then following this review, we found out that there was a bit more to add into the mix. So information received from Swiss lawyers for rewording of our existing Constitution regulation and procedure manual details. So draft presentation to the International Executive, then a presentation of these slides. And I've done a couple of little tweaks because I saw something wasn't too clear to read. And that was at Asia Pacific conference. And then we're going to go for a call to go out for the International Board meeting in December. And please note that all the documents that will be required for the International Board will have to be out 20 days before that meeting. So we have a bit of work to do. Now we're showing you what the timeline is for Congress as well. So our International President and Executive Secretary have to have the initial call goes out 8 months, and then 6 months before the General Assembly, policy external resolutions, Constitution manuals. Why I'm showing you this is a normal process we would do, and we still need to apply those normal processes in alignment with these Constitution regulation changes, amendments, not changes, but amendments. And what's been proposed to all the regions is that there will be a call for an extraordinary virtual online general meeting just for the purpose of the Constitution regulation amendments. Nothing else goes on that agenda. It would only be this. So from the 6th of November to the 9th of December, presentation to all regions and all members. 18th of December, call to the International Board for a vote on an extraordinary virtual General Assembly, EVGA, for the review voting on the BPW International Constitution Regulation Amendments for the purpose of registration in Geneva as adopted in 2011, December 2023. 6 months prior to the EVGA, issue of resolutions showing existing and amended constitution and regulations to international board and affiliate federations, affiliate clubs, and individual affiliate members. The 11th of December, a BPW Intercontinental presentation has been booked in. February, 4 months prior, amendments to resolutions received. April, 2 months prior, final resolutions for the EVGA. June, extraordinary virtual online general meeting constitution regulation amendments. So the amended constitution regulations are signed and ratified, and a copy of the minutes are issued for registration by the 30th of June 2024. Now, why is that date important? And I'll bring you up to why that date's important in a minute. But I just want to acknowledge the Constitutional Advisory Committee for 2021 to 2024. Their knowledge, their experience, their input has been huge. And then what we've done, the review of the Constitution regulations. So we've looked at the current documents, the legal review for registration in Geneva, and historic information. So there's some really important information that we're missing. So 3 items of work. 1, Constitution regulations review and development of amendments was started in 2021. 2, retaining the registration of BPW International with Geneva as per the resolution moved and adopted at the 27th BPW International Congress in 2011. And 3, Constitution regulation amendments for compliance with Swiss Civil Code. For example, information in existing Constitution regulations and procedure manual repositioned or reworded, and general amendments of items not currently included in our documents. So a quick overview. Back, BPW International requires registration in Geneva as per the motions and action required following the new Constitution regulations and procedure manual passed at the 27th BPW International Congress, Helsinki, in the 5th and 6th business sessions on the 21st of June 2011. So this is from the Congress proceedings. Vote to accept regulations applying to Geneva registration, and I won't read every bit, but motion to adopt the new constitution and the adoption of the new constitution. This was passed, and the President thanked everyone for the extensive input in the drafting process. So registration with Geneva in Switzerland. History, and this is again from the minutes. There was a point of clarification from Canada who pointed out that the items in red needed input and voting on, and the vote to accept the regulations applying to Geneva registration. The vote was to amend both the current constitution, and they were called bylaws then, but was now changed to regulations, by accepting all amendments printed in the red in the workbook, as these were necessary for BPW's registration in Geneva. This was passed, so all amendments marked in red were accepted and incorporated into the draft constitution regulations. Why I'm going through this, this gives you the foundation, this gives you the background. This is not new, this is what we needed to do. Swiss Civil Code, it was a requirement of registration in Geneva that this constitution and these regulations comply with the Swiss Civil Code, and the relevant articles in the 2010 version of the code are Articles 60 to 79. So, an overview. BPW International Executive received a letter of concern from young BPW members post General Assembly in March 2021, which required the CAC Committee to review and identify any necessary changes, which we've done. BPW International Constitution regulations and its supporting documents, the procedure manual, were to be reviewed to identify any potential information for inclusion or amendments. Review of the CAC draft documents version 2, which were drafted on the 29th of 2013. And what we found out of that, there's a whole lot of sections on how we do things. For example, how do you organise a Congress? It's not in our Constitution regulations because it's not required. But it's not in our procedure manual. So now they will become addendum items. So if anyone that knows about contracts, when, for example, I'm an architect, I write contracts for our contractor and subcontractors. The main document is called the Preliminary and Generals. So the contractor will read every piece of paper in there, well, we hope, but not always. But that main document has like sections, subsections. A subcontractor, say the plumber, he will read the PNGs and he might read section 3.2, which is the appendices. So we're effectively creating appendices into our documents. So you don't have everything, but you as a member, any member can go, well, we want to host Congress. So here's our constitution and regulations, here's the procedure manual, and here's appendix, say, for example, it's appendix D. And that tells me how, by step, how to organize a Congress. So important information. And then review the constitution regulations from 2011 and 2014 in respect to changes. Let me know if I'm not going quick enough or if I'm going too fast. So the registration process has been misunderstood from a global perspective, and I didn't put my timer on. It's not a reflection on the work of the committee since 2011. It was the system. The CAT committee of 2021 to 24 have recognised the work of all those before us. The office of the original registrar wasn't the correct office, so we're working to have it implemented into the correct registered office. This is to assist the future management of our international organisation.
Caroline, sorry.
Yes.
Could you go a little bit slower or make a pause in between if people have questions?
Okay. And if someone can keep an eye out on for any raised hands, that would be lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. So our international president, Dr. Catherine Bossard, had been working through her triennium to follow up with the registration of BPW International in Geneva, as per the resolution passed at the BPW International Congress in Helsinki 2011. As a result of this, the independent Swiss law firm, who specialises in registrations for non-profit organisations and associations in Geneva, had reviewed our current documents and proposed some restructuring. For items that are embedded as governance into our constitution regulations to be retained, while items that are around the implementation of these rules, they are put into the procedural manual as they can be easily amended. For example, as noted under the procedure manual, if language, grammar or spelling errors can be changed without resolutions and between General Assemblies, and updated without having to formally go through the amendment and resolutions to the Constitution, which would be required. Just one moment, please. I'm on a meeting, so let's make it quick. Thank you very much. Have a good day. My apologies, the courier guy. Okay, so that gives you an overview of where we're at. And did I? Yes. So we've discussed the PowerPoint has been prepared in compliance with our constitutional regulations and procedure manual to illustrate what is existing, what is proposed, and or proposed rewording by the independent legal team, which has added some valid recommendations for consideration, debate and voting by our international board and delegates at the BPW International General Assembly. Now we've got November 2024, because until we actually vote at the international board meeting, that's the process. So I've added a couple other things, difference between association and organisation. We are recognised as an association under Swiss civil law or civil code. And that's what we're talking about, articles of association. So this is important. We are an association because funding is by membership fees and donations. The association is typically a non-profit organisation. Our focus is on advocacy and networking, so they tick all our boxes. Associations are typically smaller in size. I wouldn't say so. I think we're a pretty good size and we still continue to grow. And the structure of the association is less formal and flexible. No, we've got a very clear structure on how our organisation works, from our international, from the General Assembly, the International Board and our executive. Membership is voluntary or by invitation, and examples, societies, clubs and professional associations. So what is a federation? It's a group of membership organizations or professional associations that have joined together to form a larger, usually representative organization or governing body. It is, in effect, an association of associations. And a number of our clubs and federations around the world talk about being associations of, because that's the terminology used in their own country. So one of the things to understand, the impact of the Anti-Money Laundering Act. This is the reason why we need to make sure we're also registered. And the revision on associations compulsory registration with the commercial register. Prior to the entry into force on the 1st of January 2023 of the revision of the Anti-Money Laundering Act, AMLA, and its implementing provisions, RO 2021-656, Swiss law required only associations which conducted commercial activities and associations subject to audit requirements to register with the commercial register. This situation has now evolved. So, in this perspective, associations that fulfill the following cumulative conditions remain exempt from the mandatory registration with the commercial register. So tax, what are the tax limits before tax is applied for a non-professional association? It exceeds two of the following: total assets of 10 million Swiss francs, has sales revenue of 20 million. Good. 50 full-time equivalents as annual average, example, paid employees. We don't have any of that. Exam, non-profit organizations that have over 150 Swiss francs, associations with less than 250,000 Swiss francs. VAT for non-profit and volunteer-run associations of revenue over 150 Swiss francs. Do a review on an annual audit or review accounts. So does the Federation of BPW International require registration? Hello, Sylvia, President BPW Spain.
Sorry, Caroline, I would like to know if you can change Swiss francs to dollars or euros, please. To know more or less what the amount in dollars or euros.
We can have a look at that. That's fine. It's just because everything came back from the Swiss. It's all under the Swiss law, but we can do that. And we can put it in brackets. That's easy enough to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I will appreciate. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Okay. So does the Federation of BPW International require registration? Is there existing mandates within BPW internal policy to be registered with Geneva? Yes, it was adopted at the, sorry, Sylvia, did you still have another question? Oh, thank you. So,
no, sorry.
One, during the last 2 business years, the funds raised or distributed do not exceed annually 100,000 Swiss francs, part of Article 90. Paragraph 2, letter A of the ordinance of the commercial register. Yes, finances projects with its own resources for amount exceeding. So no, we did not meet the less amount, we exceeded it. The funds are distributed by a financial intermediary. So that means that when we work, for example, when we helped Ukraine, we had money that went through another party. Then, oh, thank you. And perfect, someone's putting the figures down. So yes, we do work with another intermediary sometimes to get that money through to our members, and at least one of the associate representatives is domiciled in Switzerland. Well, we have BPW Switzerland, so yes. So we do not meet all 3 conditions, therefore we need to be registered. So new mandatory clauses added to meet Swiss Civil Code and the Constitution regulations. The Articles of Association to comply with Swiss Civil Code, preliminary clauses to identify all supplementary documents that are to be read with the Constitution regulations, but not included in such. In order to comply with legal provisions, the affiliates clause was renamed as members. This is because an association is necessarily made up of members. The executive board, or 1/5 of the members of BPW International, the association, in accordance with Article 64, paragraph 3 CC, may at any time request that an extraordinary General Assembly be held, specifying the purpose thereof. Power of representation, the President and one or more collective signatories from the executive are required. So this is new. Submissions of the minutes of the business sessions of the General Assembly with a copy of the new executive signatories are to be submitted to the Registration Office 3 months after the International Congress. Constitution regulations are to be updated with all resolutions adopted in the General Assembly and signed by the outgoing executive signatories in the last business session of the General Assembly. So that makes it really hard for whoever's the CAC chair and the team, because that means all the constitution resolutions need to be approved in the early business sessions to ensure that our outgoing executive had the final document to sign in that business session. And note that the minutes and the signatories have to all be submitted within 3 months. So, BPW International Constitution and Regulations. These were adopted at the 30th General Assembly on the 17th of March 2021. Compliance with our Constitution regulations. In accordance with the existing Constitution regulations, C8 amendments, the Constitution can be amended only at a General Assembly. So, Part 1, the structure and statutes to align with Swiss Civil Code. From here on called CC. Comments, so just to show you that we've had, to make it easy to read, new section or heading in coloured purple, new text added in blue and text removed in red. And there's some minor amendments to our front cover, updates on amendments included in the footer, name, statutes and date of most current approved has to be most prominent, and address removed from the front page, plus a new design to the cover. So hopefully you can all read that clearly. On the left-hand side is what our current cover looks like for the BPW Constitution regulations. And on the right-hand side is the new, where it's got statutes for adoption. And we will actually have to put the date it is signed on the front cover as well. There is no change to our mission statement. And that mission statement has been like that since 2011. Right, new section added, ratified. A new page will be added to the front section of the Constitution Regulations document. It is to be signed following all Constitution Regulations resolutions that have been voted and passed during the General Assembly. The final document must include the above and is made ready for the outgoing executives to sign before close of the General Assembly. This will then be issued to the head office in Geneva with 3 months following the General Assembly, with a copy of the minutes and a copy of the new signatories for the next triennium. So this just shows you what that page looks like. These updated articles of association of the International Federation of Business and Professional Women, IFBPW, also known as BPW International. The articles consist of the following 3 sections: 1, preliminary clauses, 2, constitution, and 3, regulations. And the articles have been reviewed, debated, voted, and approved, and updated with the final articles presented for approval at BPW International Assembly held. So all future resolutions for amendments and approved changes will be voted during the General Assemblies. Miriam, BPW Switzerland.
Yeah, thank you very much, Caroline, for this wonderful journey up to now. I'm just wondering, being a Swiss, will it be allowed that we propose all the documents in English? As you present them now in English, it's just a question because I would be surprised about my own home country.
Okay, our constitution is always in English. It has always been in English, but for the registration purposes, and it's actually in our constitution, and I found it in some of our historic documents, that all our documents are published in both English and French.
Mm.
So when we did this, when we first got the information from the Swiss lawyers, there was some things they recommended, and I went, no way, because it was a translation, didn't quite come back to English right. So now we've got both documents will be on the registrar as well, and in English, because that's our common language, and there is something in the clauses about that, and then in French as well, because that's how it's got to be registered in the Genevan, in that office in Geneva. President
Sure.
Catherine, and then President Joe.
Yeah, President Joe, I did not have anything. I just wanted to draw attention to President Joe's
Okay,
hand.
President
Oh.
Joe.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Sorry, I've got two questions, if that's okay. My first question is, if this goes back quite a long way, I don't understand why past international president Dr. Darwich or past international president Dr. Ashford didn't deal with this before, and that it's, you know, we're in a third triennium and it still hadn't been dealt with. Could you explain that, please?
May I take this question, Caroline? They thought everything was okay. And I think it was probably only during Dr. Amani Asfour's triennium as a vice president, I realized that we were really not registered in Geneva. That's the right place. We were registered somewhere, but not where we should be. And then I submitted it to the executive, and I personally was aware of that. I knew we were going to do it. That was the reason. Everybody thought, and Liz, past international president Liz told us it's okay. We have registered. And then I started to had a meeting with the manager of Kashi, this welcoming center. And he said, no, listen, that has nothing to do with the Office of Registrar. And okay, then we know what we have to do.
Okay, and may I be permitted to ask one more question, please? Sorry to
go ahead.
ask. Thank you very much. My second question is, have we had all of the paperwork signed from our Zoom Congress that was held in Cairo, please? The last one, it's everything been ratified from there? And when will we get all of that paperwork, please?
I saw immediate past international President Amani in Bahrain, and I thought I need to have the proceedings by the end of the year. And she said, it's my responsibility. That yes, it's your responsibility, but it's my responsibility as a president also, that you hand in the things on time, and time is long past. So we have two things. The other proceedings from President Yasmin are finished. She did not want to present it. Apparently she had found some typos, but they are done. And the other one of Amani, I have worked closely with the translator, with Lynn Evans, and you have to see.
Thank you. I know that Lynn Everson is a past national president of BPW UK, so thank you very much for those answers.
Okay.
Marie-Claude, you had a question?
Yes, thank you very much for taking my question. Is there any consequence for our registration at the UN, ECOSOC, and UNESCO?
No.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
No, there is definitely no consequence to that, because we've always had that registration. This is actually, just to give you some understanding, when we agreed for the registration because we didn't have an office anymore. That was the process, and it was all voted on back in 2011. This process does not impact on our signatories with all other parties that we've had in UNISOC. None of that gets changed at all. And we're still registered, I think, with Madrid, if I get that correct, President Catherine. Is that where it is? Our
It's
logo and our name.
the Madrid Protocol, yes.
Yes. So they don't change. But by then having BPW International registered in Geneva, that gives us the base. We can still be registered in other places, but our international organisation needs to have this registration as a grounding base to work from. Okay. So that just shows you, no problem. That just shows you what that page for being ratified will look like. So new sections and or headings. 1, preliminary clauses, they're numbered P1 to P3. 2, the Constitution, sections numbered C1 to C15. Sorry, President Catherine. And 3, regulations are numbered R1 to R14. And then the appendices, we've got BPW international definitions. So the preliminary clauses, just to show you quickly, these articles, Association of the International Federation of Business Professional Women, IFBPW or BPW International. The articles consist of the following 3 sections, and just general legal terms that in these articles, association words and expressions which have the first letter of their constitute words capitalized shall have the meaning set out in the appendix. And the procedure manual. The procedure manual is a supplementary document drawn up by BPW International containing a set of regulatory standards which supplement or clarify the application of the Articles of Association. So we need to list them or note them in this document and as a reference. And if further down the track, because I found that we do not have a financial procedure manual, if you like, then that's a document that should be looked at in the future. And anything else that is supplementary documents would be referenced in here as we go forward. So, Part 1A, Constitution. This is what our existing Constitution looks like, C1 title to C8 amendments. This is what our new Constitution sections look like. So you'll see I've put in what if it was a former title, or if it's come from another section. So for example, principles and language, BPW international regions, relationships have all come from the regulation section, and means it comes from R8 financial matters, and resources comes from R8 financial matters, but it's actually been broken down with a bit more detail. Liability, dues, affiliates, that is one that's had the most detail that's been changed, and you'll see the 3 subheadings. Our name and logos were under our R20, and legal entity and identification of BPW International, that was R20.1 and R20.2. So the following sections have been moved, come from regulation sections, procedure manual. So if they're just standard, no changes, or if there's real changes, we've identified those in the full PowerPoint presentation of 175 pages. So C5 affiliates, international, this is what's in there at the moment. International Federation of Business Professional Women, IFBPW, consists, otherwise called BPW International, consists of affiliate federations of business and professional women, affiliate clubs of business and professional women, individual affiliate members, business and professional women, and the International Board may remove an affiliate. The lawyer's explanation, and I'll just do this very quickly, in order to comply with legal provisions, we invite you to rename the affiliates clause as members. This is because an association is necessarily made up of members. Makes perfect sense. We've grouped together the definitions of the various members in this clause in order to clarify the distinctions between members from the outset. And we've also inserted a paragraph on the obligation to keep a list of members. Now, please note, initially, when we got this from the lawyers, they told us we had to have a full database of every member around the world. And we went, whoa, whoever's vice president membership would not like me for the rest of their life. But what it was is we've said that they will hold we have to, BPW International has to hold the name of the international, of the affiliate federation and the president, the affiliate club and individual members. each federation and each affiliate club holds their own list of members. So effectively, we say BPW New Zealand, President Janet Gibb. That's what on our register. And then that gets changed because as annual general assemblies, they change, their new presidents come in, then that has to be updated and kept by BPW International, which is normal. Right. And they've also added, we've also proposed that you add directly after the definition of members, the provisions relating to the joining and leaving of a member, which we have now done. So C13 members, 13.1 definition, the International Federation of Business and Professional Women, IFBPW or BPW International, consists of the affiliate federation. So I was asked to put affiliate federations and affiliate clubs and individual members of the association back in. So in blue, I was asked by the executive to put those words back in. So members may be legal entities and or are all persons who have an interest in and or wish to support the mission, social aim and objectives of BPW International, the association. Members up to 35 years of age are officially recognised as young BPW members. The association is comprised of the following members. So note also that we now have it very clearly identified about the young BPW in our constitution. And then there's the next section. So important feedback by all of the proposed draft amendments to our international constitutions are required. So there's 4 sections in there. We wouldn't have the time for me to take you through every one of those. So part 1B, regulations. So the existing regulations R1 to R24. And an overview of regulations that have been relocated or removed from this section. So affiliates, replace, restructure, new titled, and their membership, and they're under constitution. Languages, regions, financial matters, young BPW, that's under constitution 13.1. Database, relocated to constitution 13.1. Standing committees, relocated under definitions. And thank you, Jackie. And resolutions, well, resolutions are actually now in real detail how they're managed under the meetings, name and logo, procedure, relationships. And also, so regulations under R2 General Assembly, it discusses the general information about a General Assembly, the General Assembly for the triennium, General Assembly for the annual audited accounts. Now, this is one item we're under discussion with the Swiss lawyers, and we've asked for the registration office to review. We are saying that for BPW International to hold an annual audited, a General Assembly for the annual audited accounts every year, and between the training and General Assemblies, would be expensive for our organisation. It's about $80,000 or something, maybe more. So what we've asked is that the annual audited accounts for each year are sent out to the International Board for the members to review, and then there'll be an online vote. So we're just trying to get that signed off. Those annual audited accounts, though, will then also be ratified in the General Assembly in the general business of the Congress. And then an extraordinary General Assembly, which we've never had in our documents before. But this is a mandatory item that has been put in through Swiss Civil Code. And then the General Assembly, the breakdown, timeframes, meeting mode, proposals for the agenda, powers, voting at the General Assembly, quorum, decisions and minutes. Conflicts of interest, President, International Board, their competence, composition, nomination, I still haven't checked that one, President, meetings, decisions, and functions. Again, composition, nomination, term of office, removal of office. So there's quite a bit in this now this is how we operate. So these are the regulations for us. Accounting, President again, she keeps getting in there, I must admit. Dissolution, liability, trustees, amendments, and entry into force. So the International Congress structure, the International Congress is to meet 5 functions. Pre-General Assembly, International Board meeting. General Assembly for the business of the Federation, post-General Assembly International Board meeting, the 5 regional meetings, and members' education empowerment through plenary sessions, keynote speakers, and awards dinners. So, R3 General Assembly International Congress. So R3, 3.8 decisions. So these are things that are new, and I haven't put it all in blue because it's actually a new section. The General Assembly decides by means of resolutions that have been received. Resolutions on finance or dues must be issued 4 months prior to the General Assembly. A resolution is a proposal on the agenda for either internal and operational matters, external and advocacy matters. Motions can be received from the floor from a mover, seconder, and requires a vote to pass or carry the motion. Constitution and regulation resolutions require 2/3 majority vote of the quorum presented to be adopted. External resolutions requires a simple majority vote of the quorum present to be adopted. Reports are received, but before being adopted, any recommendations arising from a report must be seconded before it can be put to the vote, and a simple majority is required to pass the recommendations. So it's how we do this stuff, but it's actually there. This is the process. Decisions outside General Assemblies are written proposals from the Executive or the International Board to which all members who are entitled to vote through a delegate at the General Assembly have subscribed in writing shall be equivalent to a resolution of the General Assembly. The written proposal of the Executive or the International Board is sent by email to the members entitled to vote through a delegate at the General Assembly. Members are given 20 working days to accept the written proposal in writing by return email. After this deadline, the written proposal is considered to have been rejected by the member who has not responded in time. Again, new minutes. The minutes of the general business sessions of the General Assembly are to be submitted 3 months following the closing of the Congress and issued to the Registration Office with a copy of the amended Constitution regulations adopted and signed by the outgoing appointed executive secretaries in the final business session of the General Assembly. Forms with the details of the newly appointed executive and signatories for the next triennium. Minutes, proceedings. The proceedings is everything. The Congress proceedings and minutes of the General Assembly and the International Congress shall be kept by the executive or on its behalf, the executive secretary. Within 12 months, and this is at current under our existing months of the International Congress and General Assembly, the immediate past president is to work with the executive secretary and the executive finance officer from her term to ensure the proceedings and the finalized accounts of the International Congress are completed and forward to the International Board. So this just shows you what proceedings look like. And these were the last, and I will be quite clear, these are the last ones that I've received since 2014 at the Jeju Congress. Conflicts of interest. All members are legally prohibited from being represented by their delegate or from exercising their right to vote in decisions relating to BPW International and Association matter or lawsuit where they, a close relative, their spouse, or their partners or relatives in the direct line are involved, as pursuant to Article 68 of the Swiss Civil Code. Elected or appointed officials are not to participate in making or in any way attempting to use her official position to influence a decision in which she knows or has reason to know she has a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is when the BPW member derives any personal and or financial gain directly or indirectly as a result of the member's elected or appointed duties in BPW. I've had a member ask to just have a look at a couple of words, so I'm sending that through to her. But as I say, every one of these changes, this whole document comes through. There is a book that's been developed of all the resolutions that will be coming through. So we're nearly there. International Board. See Procedure Manual 8. In R7, functions and responsibilities, extracts have been carried over from the existing procedure manual and original regulations. So R7, functions and responsibilities. 7.9, executive minutes. The executive shall meet as often as necessary, but at least once a year face-to-face. In the case of a year in which the International Congress takes place, the executive meeting must take place before the International Congress. If 3 members of the executive so request, a meeting shall be held within 14 days of the request. The quorum of the executive to hold a meeting shall be 6 members of the executive. Members of the executive may validly participate in a meeting of the executive and make decisions in person, by video or telephone conference, or by any other means directed by the executive or decided by the executive. Meetings in person may be held in the country where the president resides or abroad. Meetings of the executive shall be convened by the president of the executive at least 3 months in advance. In urgent circumstances, the president may call an extraordinary meeting within 14 days' notice with availability confirmed by the executive to ensure a quorum is present. Clean and simple, and it's just standard business session. So decisions by the International Board and the executive. And so these are just sections because I can't take you through every slide, but C6 fiscal year existing. The fiscal year is from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. It's now called R8 accounting. The executive draws up the accounts for each financial year in accordance with the applicable legal provisions. An accounting year begins on the 1st of January and ends on the 31st of December. R11, liability. This is new. BPW International, the association, is solely liable for its debts, which are guaranteed by its corporate assets. Members have no personal liability for BPW International, the association's debts. Excuse me. Then R13, amendments. So C8, amendments existing. The Constitution can be amended only at a General Assembly. The change, amendments. The Constitution, so as you can see, there's a little bit of detail. Constitution regulations, statutes may only be discussed and amended upon receipt of resolutions for submission to the General Assembly of BPW International. A vote of 2/3 of those voting, a quorum being present, is required for an amendment to be adopted. Resolutions are as per outlined under the procedure manual. Amendments to the Constitution may be proposed by members of the executive, the International Board, past presidents of BPW International, affiliate federations who are up to date with their dues, affiliate clubs in the same country, all of whom are up to date with their dues, chair of standing committees. At any time, the executive and or international board may propose to the members by email that the Constitution, regulation, statutes be amended. The updated Constitution, regulations, statutes will be proposed through resolutions, amended, voted and adopted at the General Assembly. Entry into force. The new Constitution and regulations, statutes shall be amended as proposed and circulated by the executive to the International Board by email for voting at the extraordinary virtual General Assembly to be held within 20 days following receipt of the proposal. These articles of association, Constitution regulations, were adopted at, so the General Assembly held on, and came into force on the same day. These articles of association, Constitution regulations for the association or BPW International will be put into force to meet the registration criteria of Article 60 and the following item of the Swiss Civil Code, hereafter CC, at the Registre du Commerce of the Canton of Geneva. Sorry, I've just blocked out the word. And the signature page will follow. Any questions? There is a lot, as I said, there's a lot behind the scenes. and happy to share the 175 pages with you all, because it actually has the frequently asked questions slides in there as well. There is nothing that's hidden. There's nothing that we want everyone to be aware, but then the resolutions to go with that, working on those at the moment to support those amendments. Miriam.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. It's amazing the work you have done. It's really outstanding. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward because I think this will be a huge step forward, even though it is quite demanding. But it will be a huge step forward in clarification, especially for us, let's say it like this, for us who are used to follow these very strict lines. And I think this will help a lot. Nevertheless, I've got a question. If you also had to come by the voting rights, and if you also discussed about the voting rights, because you have now not mentioned any word about that, and I don't know if it was not something that you had to look at, or if you just jumped over it and maybe I missed it in all the information, or maybe it was in one of the other of the 195 slides.
Okay.
Amazing work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Maureen, the actual numbers for voting now are put into the procedure manual, because it could change over time. We might have voted at a conference to increase the voting strength of different clubs or federations, whatever. So the lawyer said you put that in, but there is a slide on the voting itself and how that process would work. So we do have that, and but he was very clear that what our quorum should be, what the voting strength needed to be, and what the voting is at each level. So we do have that where international board, a federation is 2 votes, 1 club. If there's a country with 3 clubs, it's 1 vote for that country. So that detail is still in here. And you're right, it was trying to decide which slides to include in this. But the actual table where we have 500 votes has a federation with 500 members has this number of votes for a general assembly. That detail was in the procedure manual, because it's something. That's the other thing. It's something that's easier to change, a procedure manual, than the Constitution. Because remember, whenever we change the Constitution regulations, whoever's the CAC chair and her secretary, whoever's working with her, all that document, all those changes have to be compiled into a document and then officially signed by our outgoing executive before the last business session of the General Assembly. Amelia, I think I've got your name right.
Hello, Caroline, it's Amélie. So just the questions
Amélie,
I saw in your presentation in the headings. In the Constitution, there is a part which is called powers, and in the internal regulation, there's a mention of power of representation. Are they linked, and what are they about? What is the situation in respect to powers and powers of representation? Thank you.
Okay, what I might do is I'll change my screen. I'll stop sharing that one, and I'll show you that slide. There's a couple of slides have been in there. Hang on a minute. Just bear with me. Right. So first we'll go, oops. So you can see that screen? Can you see?
Yes, very well, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, right. So General Assembly. So it talks about The voting, a copy of the, that's so the annual audited accounts, note under review for proof for voting online. Voting, so this was what was in our current documents. So voting, we'll go back one, sorry, for a second. So you can see the information on the screen. R11.2 had delegates of affiliate federations attending assembly, and it broke down the number of voting delegates. The lawyer said, put that into your procedure manual. What we did do, and I'll come back and answer your question in a minute, Amelia, it was that voting at the General Assembly principle, affiliate federations, affiliate clubs, vote through delegates. Only delegates of affiliate members who are up to date with their dues and any penalties may vote. Individual members do not have voting rights. A delegate's vote corresponds to one vote. Delegates may be represented by their alternate delegate. Abstentions and invalid votes do not count towards voting, towards the majority. So in here, we've got the principle around voting, how the voting's been done by each. And so that's a little bit more detail in that respect. And also who else can vote at the General Assembly. So executive members each have one vote and are entitled to vote in that capacity only. Past presidents are entitled to vote solely in their capacity as past presidents. Chairs of standing committees, because that's currently under our existing constitution, each have one vote and are entitled to vote solely in their chairs of standing committees. And for further information, please refer to the procedure manual. So then the next thing around powers, and this talks about quorum, a vote. So under our original one, it said a vote of the General Assembly is not valid unless a quorum of votes is cast. The quorum is 1/3 of the voting representation at the General Assembly, and the quorum is based on the vote count of all delegates present and eligible to vote. 3.7, a vote of the General Assembly is valid only if a quorum of 1/3 of the votes of the members represented by delegates who are present face-to-face at the General Assembly. The quorum is based on the number of votes of all delegates present face-to-face and eligible to vote. To permit face-to-face voting, this will be implemented through the engagement of an independent external online provider for secure voting with an audit system. Then, and I'll go to power. This is about decisions of the General Assembly, and I think I spoke about that, and power. I'll just look for that one. So as I say, there's a lot of information here, trying to go through it all for you. Powers. Right. The executive is the executive body of BPW International, the association. It has the right and duty to manage the day-to-day business of BPW International, the association, and to represent it in accordance with the Articles of Association, Article 69 Civil Code. It decides on all matters not expressly reserved for the General Assembly and the International Board. In particular, the executive shall take all measures necessary to achieve BPW International's, the association's, aims and objectives, ensure the correct application of the Articles of Association and any other internal regulations, administer BPW International's, the association's property, assets and resources, keep the accounts and convene and organise the General Assembly. So you can see it came from the Procedure Manual 2.2, but it's got a bit more detail. And then the executive executes and implements the decisions of the General Assembly. It manages BPW International and the association and takes all necessary measures to ensure that the stated aims are achieved. It bears collective responsibility for operational and administrative matters.
Caroline, there are two questions also in the chat. One is Stella Kamitzi from Cyprus and from the Standing Committee for Legislation, and she asked, to whom shall we communicate any proposals for amendment? And the other one is Eva Blasco, who asks, where are you planning to send the full text? We will need time to study.
Okay, well, the first thing, in respect to the legislation committee, and I see also, there's a couple other questions here. So there is a bit to study. So I'll leave the power screen up because hopefully that's responded to, I think it was Amelia's question. President Sylvia. Sylvia? Sorry, you're on mute.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you for the presentation. It was amazing. But I have a question. When you have to speak about membership, it was not clear for me when you have to say that BPW International will register individual members or associations. Please confirm. I didn't understand you.
Associations as federations and clubs, but not
Okay.
individual members, because that gave us, I can say, a sleepless nights.
Okay, that was my question because I'm traveling. Thank you.
President Cho.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to ask another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please, could you just go over the online voting again? I'm not sure I quite caught it. So if you can just go over it so that I understand it, please.
Okay, so what it's saying is that in the room, we're still looking at how the online voting or other, right, hang a minute, I think. So if there's online voting, there will be every member, and we've just tried it out at Asia Pacific, everyone's email is registered for a secure password so that they can, on their phone, they can actually vote and it comes up on a screen. So it's looking at different methods of voting when we're in Congress. But you have to be in the room. It's not a hybrid thing, so you can't be at home participating in the General Assembly and voting. So it's about the technology that we're looking at using to help the process. And then that could open up things in the future. Exec Secretary, does that help, Jo?
Yes, thank you, because I was beginning to think that was bringing in online voting and I just needed to understand that. So thank you.
Thank you. Executive Secretary Jenny.
Thank you, Chair Caroline. I'm really excited to see that there are questions, shows a lot of interest. Also, lots of people paying attention to, what is being presented. But, many of you know that President Catherine and myself sit on the CAC, Constitutional Advisory Committee, as ex officio members, and we also occupy seats on the executive board. So, we've got the perspective from both ends. And based on the questions and the comments and the presentation, this is, and not to get too legalese or nerdy on this, but, we've got to understand that at the very height of it, let's put it as a matter of compliance, because what is being presented here, and when you see lawyers' explanations and notes, it should clearly, say to you that this is also a high priority, not only for the international executive, but for the CAC committee as well, to make sure that we meet basic compliance. And so at the end of the day, we want you to walk away with these changes are not being proposed by a person or a committee or a board. It is a matter of compliance from the perspective of the organization. And so this priority must be maintained, because at the end of the day, the business of BPW International must go on, And regardless of what happened before, during, or after, it's a matter of the future of BPW International. So looking at this from a compliance point of view, and as CAT chair often, goes back and forth on where it was and where it is now. Where it was is probably from the procedure manual or the regulations, and where it is now is in the Constitution. So things have been moved around, but this is nothing new. Most of what is being presented already exists in our governance documents. So I really wanted to make sure that that's out there and understood correctly, that it is a matter of compliance and the business of BPW International is a priority. The second thing I really want to mention is the need to be inclusive on this, because we want to make sure that we are as transparent as possible, and not just the board, the international board, but also the CAC committee, that transparency is maintained, openness, and being able to not just go to the presidents, but also be able to explain this to the members and also have them be part of the process. A lot of them don't necessarily understand the history or the many challenges that we might experience at the leadership levels, but it is really important to make sure that we're able to communicate this in a very inclusive way, so that even people who are not at the top leadership levels or do not have legal and legal and governance backgrounds are able to follow through and understand that we are actually wanting to share this knowledge, and that we are going to give everyone the time to absorb this and come back with questions. Thank you.
Eva. Thank you, Jenny. Sorry, Eva, you're on mute.
You heard me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Following Sylvia's question before, can you show us the slide about members? Because I think you put there affiliate members, affiliate club, and individuals, I read, if I'm not wrong. Say something like legal entities and all was, I don't remember, sorry, the number. No, I think was before, maybe. No? Here, this one. You say here affiliate federation, affiliate clubs, and individual members.
Yes.
We have
Members might be legal entities and or all persons.
Yes.
Eva, we have the three categories. We have affiliate clubs in countries where you have no federation. We have a federation where you have at least 3 clubs, and we have individual members with BPW International in countries where you have neither a club nor a federation.
Okay,
that
perfect.
refers to this.
Okay, with this
maybe.
slide now, I'm reading this slide. It's very, very clear. Okay, thank you very much.
You're
So
welcome.
there is a lot of information, and happy to share it. I mean, I didn't do all this work not to share
No, to share it. We
Yeah,
have,
thank you.
Sorry, President Catherine, just one thing to go back to the questions in the chat
yeah,
and legislation. So, for example, I know the legislation committee have been working on some resolutions for our constitution. Now, this is one of the questions we did need to ask. So I'll take a step back. When we had, President Catherine, Executive Secretary Jenny, and I had a meeting with the lawyers back in October. And one of the questions I asked them, could we put our existing constitution regulations in to be registered? And there was a flat no. Our documents do not comply. So that's why we're updating these to meet the minimum requirements. Now, during the last couple of years. I know, for example, our legislation team and committee had been looking at some resolutions because there's some changes and some things didn't align with our constitution and regulations and procedure manual. We had to make a decision, is this the document? The ones that we're putting together now are the ones that we put forward, and then any other constitution and regulation amendments following this then come through at our next Congress, face-to-face Congress. So as the Constitutional Committee and our executive, we went, we should focus on this, and then any other constitution regulation changes should then be presented at our General Assembly. So does that help? If I've got that right? Because if we keep trying to make other changes, there may be, questions, maybe?
May I add something to this, Caroline? Just to make this very, very clear for all the participants, we had resolutions on the table for 2021. And I think there were just the external resolutions were voted on, and all the rest was left out because we had this virtual Congress. So what will happen for the next normal official Congress in Argentina, the resolutions chair will get in touch with all the persons who had brought forward a resolution and will ask them, are you maintaining this resolution or are you not maintaining it? And then it will come to the Congress workbook and will go into there and will be on the International Congress in Argentina discussed, not beforehand. We have to make here a very clear distinction, otherwise, because we have now in this document, we have the things that need to be in there, as Executive Secretary Jenny said, to comply with the things we need to have, and for the Office of Registry and all the other things people wanted to change in the have to be discussed at the International Congress. Amélie.
Thank you very much. Just a clarification regarding vocabulary, because I heard that we were not to use the term affiliates anymore, but I still see it in the definition of the members. So how are we going on that point, please? Thank you.
No, the lawyers had taken out the word affiliate and just said individual members, federations and clubs. The executive members said we want to keep affiliate in there because everyone is affiliated to BPW International. So we've put that back into the document and said to the lawyers we were going to keep that there. And in fact, I raised the eyebrows of the lawyers a couple of times in the meeting because one of the things was they wanted to just restructure our aims a little bit. And I said, no, you're not changing our aims. These have been put together by our members. And if we look at changing those, that will be something separate. And it might be one of the words here or something there. But we went, no, we're not touching our aims. That is who BPW International is. And so I watched the lawyer go, oh, hang on a minute. But it's really important to respect what we have. Some of the stuff is just making sure we've got the right language for the other parts to ensure compliance with Swiss Civil Code. Stella.
Yes, hi, Caroline. Actually, the question I've made is that if we have any suggestions to make, I mean, I understand this is very urgent now to have the constitution amended so that we have to register it and be, properly legal in existence and also as a federation, association, and so forth. My question, though, that I also put on the message is that if, for example, us as the Standing Committee for Legislation, we have some proposals to make for certain amendments or additions, this means that we have to lobby around various countries to put this before the AGM, or can we send this forward to you or to the executive committee?
Okay, Stella, there's two parts to this. One is this document, which is to meet the Swiss Civil Code. So we've gone back through the history. All the resolutions, so you can see here, I'm just showing you a screen that's showing every one of those is a resolution, or if it's no change, then there will be no resolution to it. Even if it's got a number change, I have to do a resolution for it, right? So that's for this document. If there was a word or a couple of words, because as any General Assembly, so even though this is a virtual, we're requesting that the International Board vote on doing a virtual General Assembly just for this document. When the resolutions come out, that entitles every member to review, and if there's a change in words, then they come back, and then we review it and then send it out just as we would do a normal process. So if we go back to the timeline that would show for Congress, for example, for a normal face-to-face Congress, 6 months before the General Assembly, policy and external resolution. So I have to make sure when the call to go out to the International Board, we have that document of the proposed resolutions go out so that the International Board has that. Then there's the review process that we go through. So under here it states, call to the International Board to vote on an extraordinary virtual General Assembly, just for this document only. 6 months prior, the issue of the resolutions showing existing amended constitution regulations. 4 months prior, any amendments to the resolutions from everyone that's reviewed them, if there's any resolutions. Any tweaks, they come back. 2 months prior, the final resolutions for review and debate at the Extraordinary General Assembly go out. So we're following the same process as if we were going through a normal General Assembly. But what we're trying to do is make sure this document has aligned with what we were meant to have done in 2011. And after the review with the lawyers, it is the base that we're working through to ensure compliance with both Swiss Civil Code and how our constitution regulations are. Then for our Congress in Argentina in 2024, there is the normal process for resolutions for the Constitution that have to go through. They all get submitted to the President's office. They then come to the CAC chair, the CAC committee for Constitution regulation resolutions and procedure manual. And any external resolutions go to the resolutions chair for if that's external policy type. So that normal process will still be undertaken. We're focusing on this specific updated document, which again will still comply with the constitutional regulation requirements and processes. We're not doing anything different, except we would be doing an extraordinary virtual online general meeting to discuss this one document. Does that help, Stella?
Yes, thank you, Caroline. I mean, if you send us, when you send us the draft, I will have a look at it and come back with any questions. It's completely new to all of us, but thanks for the clarifications. Appreciate.
Not a problem. Yes, it's I thought my role when I was asked to step up into this role was going to be some tweaks and maybe some things that I saw could be added to our constitution regulation. Not the restructuring, but all amendments, it's all there, and there's some mandatory clauses. But otherwise, the information's there. It's just, I think it's given us a really good foundation. And I've worked on other constitutions for other groups. And as I said, when you've got a really good constitution, you go, that's basically our constitution regulations. This is how we operate. Stick that in the bottom drawer and only need to pull it out when you really need it. The procedure is how you do it. And so it's making sure we've got those two things working in alignment together. That's what's important. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. President Joe has another question.
Sorry, Joe, I didn't see.
I'm so sorry, Carolyn.
No, no.
We talked about the voting that we can't do online voting, but for this purpose within our constitution, we can vote online for these amendments, or
No.
is it better just to wait until we have our 2024 Congress and do it in person?
Oh, right. So what we're asking first, the International Board and meeting, sorry, I'm just trying to find my mouse. An International Board meeting has to be called for the International Board to vote on an extraordinary virtual General Assembly, which will be online. This would be the only time we will have done that, with only one item on the agenda, which is the Constitution and regulations for the purpose of registration with Geneva. So this is the one time we would do it as an online thing. Then you would have your normal face-to-face General Assemblies, and there'd been talk about hybrids, so we may as well get the elephant out of the room. But as it's been noted, a General Assembly, face-to-face General Assembly, costs our organising committee, it costs the executive. You have to have a certain number of attendees before you can have anything else. Then it will be at the discretion of the planning committee. If they've met all the registration requirements and the numbers for registration, they may permit in some sessions to have a virtual meeting connection, but no voting. So you have to be there in person to have the right to vote. But just for this purpose, there will be a specific online General Assembly for voting.
And for this purpose, we have the legal framework that we can vote on this constitutional amendment virtually. That's what I was trying to.
Oh yeah. But we don't have it at the moment, so we need the International Board to vote, because it is something totally different to anything we've done in the past. So it's not a given until the International Board. If the International Board agree for the purpose of this, otherwise, all this document will have to be discussed in detail at the face-to-face Congress. We won't get anything else done, because when you see it all, there's quite a lot in there. So that's why the executive have voted and agreed to put this forward to the International Board to vote on a specific extraordinary virtual General Assembly.
Caroline, I got here in the chat several questions regarding if the Congress is being held in Argentina or not. We put on review on the website, and I had an informal meeting with 7 of my executive in Bahrain, and we decided to tell the members to wait to buy the flight tickets out of the following reasons. We got quotes. We got new quotes which were higher. We got suddenly quotes, no more quotes for food, that it's too early. And for us, the situation was financially very insecure. So what we will do now is we will wait until the 19th of November, where the election will take place of the new president. And I was promised quotes from the hotel, which would be final. I was just very concerned, you know. We got a quote, and we were discussing it on the, as the executive is also the International Planning Committee. We were planning the costs, and we thought, okay. And then 3 weeks later came a new quote with different figures. Then we said, no, we have to have secure figures. We have to be able to make a budget that is really sound and solid, and not something that is waking in. So you will by the end of November, you will know. We would like, of course, to hold the International Congress in Argentina, in Mar del Plata, as foreseen and as prepared, because there has been a lot of work has been done, and I think it's important to. It's also for a host planning committee. It's very terrible if you change, but we can, on the other hand, of course, not take any financial risks for BPW International. So that is the situation. That is nothing to be, how should I say? I think that is just for a few weeks. Please wait, and we will let you know. Thank you. Okay, Caroline, I think
One more question. I mean, yes.
Yes, Caroline, just going back to the votes and the possibility of hybrid meetings for the General Assembly. If it's possible to build in a bit more flexibility, I don't want to be gloom and doom, but we know we are going to face in the coming decades climate crisis. So in addition to the historical known disruption of war, earthquakes and floods, we might have more disruption and more members who are not capable, but because of force majeure events, to participate in a General Assembly. So if there could be a small article in the Constitution to say that the executive, in case of force majeure, can adapt the hybrid system, that would be helpful, I think.
We have actually had that included. So in the event of a pandemic or world crisis requiring the urgent cancellation of the face-to-face for the International Congress, this would be automatically upgraded to a full online meeting to ensure the safety and well-being of all members of BPW International. To permit change in event and schedules, this is to be coordinated within 6 months of the original International Congress. So that has been added. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope we've crossed all the I's. Oh, hang on, maybe dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's.
what
So
we don't.
Sorry, President Catherine.
Yeah, what we don't have in it is climate catastrophes or climate problems. I don't know if we could formulate this here on this, not only the pandemic, but war, climate disaster, yeah, something like this. Okay. Okay, in this case, I think we are done for the moment, and we'll send you all the documents, and hope to thank you for your active participation. It was very important to us. And thank you, Caroline, especially for the great work you have been doing. It was a pleasure to work with you, but it was also an enormous effort from your side. We could not have done it without you. Thank you so very much. Wish you all a very good night, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for attending. And just one moment, someone said about 6 months. So when we send this out, you can look at the resolutions and look at what's been proposed. And if you think 6 months, it should be 3 months, then please put a note in and we can review it as well. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you to all of you.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you. Bye. Ciao. Ciao,
Great.
ciao. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye bye.
Everybody.
Thank you to all for participating. And I would love to introduce, we have a new president